Picture the United States Senate. 100 people, representing a country of over 300 million. Now imagine that just one of them, a single senator, can walk onto the floor, raise an objection, and bring the business of the entire chamber to a dead stop. Not slow it down. Stop it. A bill supported by a majority of senators, a majority of the House, and the President himself, can be frozen in place by one person almost nobody outside their home state has ever heard of. It sounds like a glitch in the system. A loophole someone forgot to close. But it isn't. It's one of the most powerful and most deliberate features of American government. So how does a single senator get that kind of power? And why has no one taken it away? To understand this, you have to throw out the idea that the Senate runs on simple majority rule. In most democratic bodies, 51% wins. You get the votes, you pass the bill, done. But the Senate is different, and the difference comes down to two words. Unlimited debate. For most of its history, the Senate has operated on the principle that any senator can speak on any issue for as long as they want. There was no clock. No rule forcing them to sit down and let a vote happen. And that single tradition, unlimited debate, is the seed from which everything else grows. Here's why it matters. If debate never has to end, then a vote never has to happen. A senator who opposes a bill can simply refuse to stop talking, or more precisely, refuse to let the debate close. This tactic has a name you've probably heard. The filibuster. Originally, a filibuster meant literally holding the floor and talking. Reading from books. Reciting recipes. Anything to run out the clock and block a vote. But the modern version is far quieter and far more powerful. Today, a senator usually doesn't even have to stand up and speak. They just signal that they intend to filibuster. And that signal alone is enough to change everything. Because to overcome a filibuster, the Senate needs something called cloture. Cloture is the process of forcing debate to end so a vote can finally happen. And here's the catch that shapes all of American politics. Ending debate doesn't take a simple majority. It takes 60 votes. Not 51. 60. Think about what that means. In a 100-member Senate, 41 senators, fewer than half, can keep debate alive forever and stop almost any bill from ever getting a final vote. Suddenly, the magic number in the Senate isn't 51. It's 60. And a majority that can't reach 60 is a majority that often can't actually govern. But we said a single senator. Not 41. So how does one person freeze things all by themselves? This is where a quieter, stranger tool comes in. It's called the hold. In the Senate, a huge amount of business gets done not by dramatic votes, but by unanimous consent. It's a shortcut. The leader asks if everyone agrees to move forward on something, and if no one objects, it passes instantly. This is how the Senate handles thousands of routine items, from minor bills to the confirmation of officials and judges. It works beautifully, as long as everyone cooperates. But unanimous consent has an obvious weakness built right into the name. It has to be unanimous. And that means a single senator, by simply saying "I object," can shatter it. A hold is a senator privately telling their party leader that they will object to unanimous consent on a particular item. In practice, it's a warning. Bring this to the floor, and I'll block the shortcut. I'll force you to go through the slow, painful cloture process, burning up days of the Senate's most precious resource: time. And because the Senate calendar is always crowded, and time is always short, leaders often won't even try. The item just quietly dies, or sits frozen for months. One senator. One objection. And a nominee, or a bill, simply stops moving. Often, the public never even learns whose hand was on the brake. So why would the Senate ever design itself this way? Why hand that much power to a single member? The answer goes back to what the Senate was actually built to be. The House of Representatives was designed to move fast and reflect the passions of the moment. The Senate was designed to be the opposite. Slower. More deliberate. A place to cool things down. The founders were genuinely afraid of a pure majority steamrolling everyone else. So they built a chamber where the minority would always have a voice, and where big changes would require broad agreement, not just a razor-thin majority. The filibuster and the hold are, in a sense, that fear made into rules. Tools designed to force compromise and protect the losing side. That's the theory. In practice, something drifted. For most of American history, the filibuster was rare. A dramatic weapon pulled out for the biggest fights. But over the last few decades, it quietly became routine. What used to be an exceptional act became an everyday expectation. Now, major legislation is simply assumed to need 60 votes, not because the Constitution says so, but because the threat of a filibuster is always in the room. The tool built for rare moments became the default setting. And a chamber designed to slow things down started, at times, to freeze entirely. This has enormous consequences that reach far beyond Senate procedure. Think about what it means for anyone trying to actually pass a law. A president can win an election, their party can win the House, and win the Senate, and still be unable to deliver much of what they promised, because they hold 53 seats instead of 60. Whole agendas live and die on that gap. Judicial and executive positions can sit empty for months because of anonymous holds. And voters, watching from the outside, are often left confused and furious. They elected a majority. They expected action. And instead they got gridlock, without ever understanding that the real story was a rule about ending debate. So why not just get rid of it? Here's where it gets interesting, because the Senate actually can change its own rules. In fact, both parties have already chipped away at the filibuster when it suited them, removing it for most nominations so that judges and officials can be confirmed by a simple majority. Which proves something important. The 60-vote wall isn't law. It's a choice. The Senate keeps it because, deep down, both parties are playing a long game. Today's majority knows that someday it will be the minority. And when that day comes, the filibuster and the hold become their only real leverage. So each side protects the weapon, not because it helps them now, but because they know they'll need it later. It's an insurance policy that both sides refuse to cancel. And that's the real answer to our question. A single senator can freeze the entire government not because of some accident or oversight, but because the system was deliberately built to give the minority real power, and then quietly allowed that power to grow far beyond what anyone originally intended. The hold, the filibuster, the magic number 60, none of it is a bug. It's the Senate doing exactly what it was designed to do. Force agreement. Protect the minority. Slow everything down. The only thing that changed is how often that brake gets pulled. So the next time you see a bill with clear majority support simply vanish, or a nominee left waiting for months with no explanation, don't assume the system is broken. Look closer, and you'll usually find one senator, one objection, and a 200-year-old idea about protecting the losing side, working exactly as intended. The question isn't whether the system is broken. The question is whether a rule built for a smaller, slower country still makes sense for the one we live in now. So what do you think? Is the filibuster a vital shield for the minority, or an outdated roadblock that makes the country impossible to govern? Tell me in the comments. And if you want to understand the next hidden gear in this machine, make sure you're subscribed, because there's a lot more of this than anyone tells you.